Welcome back. Well, as parents, we all, of course, want our children to be healthy and to be happy. But despite our best intentions, a new study reveals mental health issues among young people continues to rise. So for today's agenda, we are asking, how can parents help children to lead happy and fulfilling lives? Hugh van Cuylenburg from the Resilience Project, which runs programs to help young people in particular, joins us now. Hugh, welcome back. So good to see you.
Thanks, Georgie.
I know you continue to give talks right across the country to not just children and young people anymore. You're speaking to a lot of parents as well who obviously have a vested interest in your messaging. What is the recurring theme that seems to keep coming up when you go to all corners of the country?
Yeah, it's different. I think we've visited about 800 schools now around the country, and what I'm finding for boys and girls is a little bit different. For boys, there's a pretty clear thing I'm seeing at the moment, and that is that there's quite poor emotional literacy. So what's emotional literacy? It's simply the ability to label the emotion as you're experiencing it. If you're unable to do that, it's a condition called alexithymia, which is where you just cannot label the emotion you're experiencing as you're experiencing it. Why do boys have that? I think a lot of the time as boys growing up, when we're expressing emotion, we're upset, we're crying, people will say, or men will say, "Come on, don't cry, grow up, be a man, yeah,
don't be a girl."
Yeah, and so as I mean that's a big one. Don't be a girl, but for boys they then say, okay, so if I'm going to be a man, I want to be a man. I'm not going to have emotions. I'm not going to, have these things, and so we kind of don't identify them with them. And then as we get older and we grow up, our partner will say, "You're okay," and we say, "I'm fine," because we find it very hard to label the actual emotion.
Is part of the problem here then that the role models for young boys of today, being their fathers, perhaps being teachers, men in powers of influence, in positions of influence, were brought up in such a different way? In one generation, how we rear our boys has changed so dramatically, and our expectations have changed. Yeah, so it's confusing.
Yeah, possibly. And I think it's the messages we get all across, social media, advertising. I think it's not just our dads, it comes from everywhere. Why is it really important? Because I think a boy, I think about one of the boys I worked with. I remember a while back, I remember saying to him, I did a lot of work in boys in juvenile detention, in and out of juvie a couple of years back. I remember saying to a boy once, I said, "How do you feel?" And he said, "Oh, I feel bad." And I said, No, I want the emotion. And he said, "I feel crap." And I said, No, that's not an emotion. What's the emotion you feel? And he said, "Oh, no, I feel crap." And I said, "Okay, why do you feel crap then?" And he couldn't tell me. And I held up a chart, and on the chart it had all these faces, all these emoticons, and I said, "Mate, point to the face that you feel right now." And he pointed to a face. It was a really sad face. And I turned the card round, on the back it said lonely. And I said, "It says here you feel lonely. Do you feel lonely?" And he said, "Yeah, I guess I do." And I said, "Why do you feel lonely?" He told me like that. He said, "Oh, Mum and Dad don't come too often and my friends from school aren't here, so I feel lonely." When he said I feel crap, he couldn't explain why, but when he told me he felt lonely, he could tell me why. So when you can then label the emotion, it makes it much easier. Then we're able to fix the problem for him. Let's get your parents to come in more, and you need to find a place where you fit in here. But we've got to be able to label the emotion first, otherwise it's very hard.
It is heartbreaking to think of young boys grappling with that. How do we turn it round? What do we need to do?
Well, this is what we do in schools, and parents can do this with their kids as well. We will hold up, I'll put up on the screen a big emoticon, a big face, or a big emoji, and I'll say to the kids, "Everyone make this face now." And the kids make the face, and while they're making the face, I say, "Who can label this emotion for me?" And typically the girls' hands go up pretty quickly. It might be a nice smiling face, and the girls will say joy, excitement, hope, and you can see the boys going, "Was I Wayne, we did this? I'm a bit confused here." But anyway, that's not totally true. The boys aren't that bad. But when we put it up there, I'll say, "Okay, let's say that face is joy. Well done, guys. Who can tell me a story about a time they felt joy?" And then the kids will put their hand up and they'll start telling you stories. The kids in the room who struggle, the kids who might have alexithymia, they look at the face, they hear the story, and we remember stories as humans. We're so good at remembering stories, so they put two and two together. So parents out there, with your phone, you can use your phone. I know one of my key messages is get off your phone, but you can use your phone. There's so many emoticons on there, emojis on there. Pick an emotion or pick a face and say to your child, "Hey, what face is this?" And if they can't tell you, that's fine. You can just say, "I'll tell you a time I reckon we felt like this as a family," or "I'll tell you a time you felt like this." And you go through and you tell them the story, and it's amazing how quickly they remember.
We're running out of time. Let's now talk about girls. What are you picking up on there? Because I'm reading that it's about girls being perfectionists. Yeah, their issues are quite different.
It is. I mean, what I see across the board and from schools all over the country is I see girls who are trying to get their psychological needs met online. So what I mean by that is we have physical needs, you know, water, food, shelter. We have psychological needs, the need to feel loved, the need to feel like we belong, the need to feel validated. Girls are turning to social media. You know, if you want to feel loved, put up a photo of yourself. People literally have to press a love heart button to let you know that they love your photo. So you think that you feel loved. You want to feel like you're validated. You put up a photo of you doing something. You know, I'm at a cafe, I'm at this concert. You want to feel validated. It doesn't work though. Social media is not real life. It's a parody of real life. What I mean by that, there's a survey done in the States every year for the last 20 years. It's a one-question survey, and the question's this: in a real crisis, how many people do you have you can turn to in your life? And the most common answer 8 years ago, I think, was 6. The most common answer last year to that question, how many people can you turn to in a crisis? The most common answer was 0.
Wow.
Because we're just looking for these connections on our phone, but it doesn't work.
So just quickly to girls and mothers of girls, what's your message?
My message is involve your daughters, involve the girls in groups, in sporting clubs, music groups, whatever they're interested in, where they're going to feel loved, they're going to feel validated. Social connection is so important for us as a society. We're moving away from social connection. So involve your girls in a group, in somewhere where they're going to feel loved, validated, feel like they belong, they get their psychological needs met, and they won't need to turn to social media in order to feel like they're going to get that love.
I always say this, I could talk to you all day. Time is against us. Hugh van Cuylenburg, thank you so much. And I know you continue your speaking right across the country. People can go online to the Resilience Project to find out where you're next speaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Georgie.
Thank you so much for all you
Pleasure.
bring.
Thank you.
He is full of so much wisdom, Deb.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Georgie.